Samurai Jack follows the journey of a noble samurai, cast into a dystopian future ruled by the wicked Aku. In this video, we'll dive deep into the story of Samurai Jack, exploring its epic battles, unforgettable characters, and the warrior's relentless quest to return home. Long before existence took shape and the human race had yet to populate the earth, three gods appeared and began to create the universe. These three gods, though they could take physical form, possessed energies beyond human comprehension. They were known as Odin, Ra, and Rama. The gods collaborated in the creation of the universe and forged a magical artifact called the String of Time to mark the passage of time. This string continuously formed and stretched across the sky as time progressed. The String of Time granted the ability to travel through time as it existed parallel to both time and space. Over time, however, the Titans took control of creation, led by their king Cronus. Meanwhile, an unknown dark mass began to take shape in the depths of the universe. Cronus, in his quest for power, unlocked the secrets of time and space and forged the Bronze Eye, along with three special jewels. These mystical artifacts allowed him to shape the universe and time as he pleased. The jewels, which contained trapped cosmic essence, granted unimaginable power to those who wielded them. With this mastery, Cronus gained the ability to create and destroy as he wished, ruling as though he were a god. However, this limitless power eventually corrupted him, leading him down a dark path. Cronus used his power recklessly, altering the very fabric of existence. His reign of unchecked dominance continued until he was ultimately defeated by his own son. After his fall, Cronus was imprisoned in the farthest depths of the universe, and the jewels he had created fell to Earth, lost forever. Humanity, incapable of comprehending their divine properties, remained unaware of the true potential of these relics. While these events unfolded, the dark mass in the universe continued to expand, growing at an alarming rate. It consumed everything in its path, becoming stronger with each entity it devoured. Eventually, its power reached such terrifying levels that the gods were forced to intervene. Only the gods' sacred weapons could harm this monstrous force. After a long and arduous battle, the gods managed to destroy the mass. However, a massive fragment of it managed to escape and traveled across the cosmos, eventually crashing into Earth. It is believed that this dark fragment struck Earth during the era of the dinosaurs, causing a cataclysmic explosion. This event led to the mass extinction of the dinosaurs and served as the first demonstration of the dark mass's devastating power. After the impact, the dark mass burrowed deep into the earth and formed a fortress, surrounded by towering black spikes emerging from the ground. This fortress drained the life from the planet, causing an unprecedented drought. Once the drought subsided, Earth was engulfed in an era of ceaseless snowfall. The Neanderthals were the first to experience these brutal conditions. As the world became covered in ice and snow, the fortress of the dark mass was buried beneath the frozen wasteland. Yet, even beneath the ice, its influence continued to spread. Every living creature that fell into the black liquid produced by the dark mass unknowingly fed its growth. Centuries passed, and humans began to form small villages. However, the dark mass continued its relentless expansion, consuming all in its path and leaving behind barren wastelands. Many villages were obliterated in its wake. One day, a brave emperor decided to stand against this great evil. He resolved to put an end to the darkness and protect humanity. A special potion, believed to have the power to destroy the dark force, was prepared for him. Leaving behind his pregnant wife, the emperor gathered his warriors and set out on his perilous journey, venturing deep into the cursed lands in search of the source of the darkness. As they pressed forward, they encountered towering black spikes rising from the earth. One by one, his knights were struck down, impaled by the deadly arrows that emerged from the ground. In the end, only the emperor remained. Determined to succeed, he coated his arrow with the sacred potion, uttered a solemn prayer, and fired it into the heart of the dark mass. He expected the arrow to destroy the entity, but what followed was beyond his worst nightmares. As soon as the arrow struck its target, the dark mass awakened, taking the form of a towering monstrous entity. To the emperor's horror, the being thanked him for rousing it from its slumber. Then, in an act of sheer malevolence, the entity pinned the emperor down and burned his palace to the ground. This terrifying entity gave itself a name. The emperor could do nothing but scream in anger and despair. To comprehend the true nature of Aku and the immense danger he posed, one must understand that no ordinary weapon could harm him. The only weapons capable of damaging him were those created by the gods or forged from pure, unyielding goodness. As Aku continued to burn the emperor's palace, a giant white horse suddenly appeared before him. The horse carried the wounded emperor away, soaring high into the sky beyond the clouds. This place was not accessible to ordinary beings, and only those accompanied by a guardian could reach it. Upon arrival, the emperor encountered three sages, and soon after, the three gods, Odin, Ra, and Rama, appeared before him. The gods told him that only human virtues could defeat Aku's evil, and that his true hope lay within himself. Then they summoned lightning and conjured a steel sphere. The sages took their mallets and struck the sphere, revealing a magical sword sword forged from purity. This sword, crafted from the essence of the human soul, embodied all goodness and had a singular purpose: to defeat Aku. This sword could only be wielded for righteous purposes. Even if it fell into the hands of an evildoer, it could never harm an innocent. When the sword was finally ready, the gods handed it to the emperor and declared that he now possessed the power to vanquish Aku. They warned him, however, that he should not attempt to understand Aku's magic. With the sacred sword in his grasp, the gods gifted him a suit of steel armor and sent him on his way atop a cloud, which carried him toward his destiny. When the emperor arrived at his palace, he launched an attack on Aku, but Aku merely laughed at his efforts. However, with the help of the cloud, the emperor charged again and struck Aku with the magic sword. A long and brutal battle ensued. Though Aku was a formidable opponent, the emperor's unwavering determination and the divine power of the sword ultimately prevailed. With one final mighty blow, the emperor trapped Aku inside the blade. He then thrust the sword into the ground, sealing Aku's fate. At that moment, a gigantic black tree emerged from the earth. The rain ceased and the sun shone down, illuminating the land once more. As if heralding a new era of peace, the emperor's son was born at that very moment. With his son's birth, the emperor realized that he must ensure humanity's preparedness in case evil returned. To safeguard the future, he convened with the leaders of the surrounding villages, and together they forged a sacred pact. They would train their sons to fight, should Aku ever return. However, only the emperor's son would be destined to wield the cursed sword. This child, whose name remained unknown, would one day become humanity's last hope if darkness ever returned. Meanwhile, his son, Jack, grew up in the fields of golden wheat, playing freely and occasionally encountering other children. As a young boy, Jack crafted small figurines from wheat leaves, yet he was destined for far greater things. One fateful day, Jack accidentally witnessed a battle, a lone swordsman facing 4 powerful warriors. This spectacle ignited something within him, and he began playing games, pretending to be a swordsman in his spare time. When Jack was only 8 years old, an unexpected event occurred, a solar eclipse. With this celestial event, the seal that imprisoned Aku deep within the earth was shattered, and Aku was freed once more. Overjoyed at his resurrection, Aku unleashed his fury upon the world, seeking to eradicate all that opposed him. His first target was the palace of his greatest enemy, the Emperor. With Aku's arrival, the palace was reduced to rubble. Meanwhile, Jack's mother took him on a perilous journey, while the Emperor stayed behind, guarding the legendary magic sword. As they traveled, Jack's first lessons were in astronomy, learning how to navigate by the stars. Their journey eventually led them to Arabia, where Jack mastered horseback riding. From there, he traveled to Africa, where he trained in hand-to-hand combat. Jack's arrival in Africa was seen as a foreboding omen, a sign that Aku had returned. The local tribes, understanding the urgency of his training, welcomed him into their fold. At first, the tribe leader's son rejected Jack, but over time they became inseparable friends. Together, they trained rigorously, learning various combat techniques. While Jack honed his skills, Aku was indulging in the world's riches. He discovered a powerful new energy source, a mysterious red gemstone which granted him immense power. Though the exact nature of these jewels remained unknown, it was clear that the more he obtained, the stronger he became. Aku knew that somewhere in the world, a child was training to challenge him. Determined to eliminate this threat, he issued a decree, promising a great treasure to anyone who captured the boy. Thus, bounty hunters scoured the land, eager to claim the reward. One fateful day, a group of warriors stormed the African village where Jack was training and kidnapped everyone. Jack's first true mission was now before him, to single-handedly rescue his entire tribe. Through sheer bravery and skill, he fought against the warriors, ultimately liberating his people. Having witnessed Jack's extraordinary abilities, the tribe's leader realized he had nothing left to teach him. Jack had surpassed even the greatest warriors. Thus, Jack continued his journey, reaching Egypt, where he studied literature and philosophy. Meanwhile, Aku, frustrated that none of his attempts to stop Jack had succeeded, began seeking a new strategy. When the boy challenged Aku using the magic sword, Aku realized the truth. No matter how strong he was, he could be stopped again. Desperate, Aku sought out a spell known as the Rope of Time. This powerful spell allowed time travel. Determined to secure his survival, Aku stole the spell from the skies and studied its secrets until he fully mastered it. Once he gained this knowledge, he destroyed the rope, ensuring that no one could use it against him. However, there was something he did not know. The fibers of the rope that remained still contained the magic of time travel. From that moment on, Aku gained control over time itself. He could open portals to different eras at will, giving him an eternal escape route. Meanwhile, he continued to ravage nations, using his dark magic to spread terror. If we return to the boy's journey, we see that over the years, he had transformed into an incredibly strong warrior. During his travels in Greece, he learned to fight in the arenas. In England, he met a group of musketeers and mastered archery. With the Vikings, he sailed the seas aboard a pirate ship. In Russia, he endured the harsh life of a lumberjack and received intense training. In Mongolia, he mastered horseback combat. At a Shaolin temple, he trained in martial arts where he met a friend named Tom Su. Together, they trained under Master Chu, and Tom So would later become an important figure, one Jack would encounter again 1,000 years later. After completing his training, Jack traveled to a Buddhist settlement where he was reunited with his mother. She presented him with the legendary magic sword, and Jack continued training with it until he reached the age of 25. With his training complete, Jack was determined to find Aku and restore peace to his homeland. When he set out for Aku's castle, he discovered his father, who had been enslaved by Aku. Enraged, Jack confronted Aku, demanding the return of his home and people. Thus, an intense battle began between the two. Jack, wielding the magic sword, easily overpowered Aku. At this point, Aku was not yet at full strength, and Jack had a real chance to defeat him. However, just before Jack could land the final blow, Aku used his space-time magic to send Jack 1,000 years into the future. This was Aku's ultimate plan, to send Jack so far forward in time that he would have no allies left, and Aku would become nearly invincible, growing stronger over the centuries. With no warriors or weapons left to oppose him, Aku's power expanded exponentially. Over time, he built a massive dystopian metropolis, Aku City. Despite being the most technologically advanced city in the universe, Aku City was also the worst place imaginable, a reflection of the chaos and evil that Aku represented. For millennia, Aku ruled with an iron fist, using fear, manipulation, and tyranny to maintain control. After escaping Jack's attack, Aku wasted no time expanding his empire. He conquered the entire planet, enslaving all who opposed him. He forced laborers to mine for red gemstones, an unknown energy source that further increased his power. Even animals were affected. Over time, dogs evolved, learning to walk upright and even speak like humans. As the centuries passed, the dogs forgot their primitive nature, no longer remembering that they once barked and walked on 4 legs. The first talking dog was discovered in the ruins of an ancient abandoned site. Despite Aku's overwhelming control, resistance movements formed across the world. Many refused to submit to his rule, continuing to fight back against his tyranny. Among these warriors were the Shaolin monks, the very same temple warriors Jack had once trained with. Under the leadership of Jack's old friend, Tom So, the monks held their ground against Aku. Through centuries of intense meditation and training, they achieved extraordinary feats. Some monks could even move objects using the wind or levitate. Unlike others, Tom So transcended human limits, integrating himself with nature itself. By drawing energy and nutrients directly from the earth, he achieved an immortal existence, continuing his resistance for millennia. To accelerate his conquest, Aku began forming powerful alliances with the most evil beings imaginable. Among his darkest allies were Dimongo, a soul-sucking demon, DJ Stylebator, a DJ whose hypnotic music enslaved anyone who listened, the Shinobi, assassins trained to merge with the shadows, Narc, an alien con artist, Scaramouche, a ruthless mercenary, the Daughters of Aku, a secretive cult of assassins, and the Order of Aku, a militant organization devoted to his worship. Aku also relied heavily on technology, enlisting brilliant but evil scientists to engineer advanced robotic warriors. At first, these robots were primitive and inefficient, but over time, they evolved into fearsome killing machines. One of the first powerful models, known as the X, was a cold-blooded, ruthless war machine, programmed to carry out Aku's every command without question. With these unstoppable forces at his disposal, Aku tightened his grip on the world, ensuring that no one could oppose him. But despite his absolute power, there were whispers of a warrior from the past, a man with a magic sword destined to return and bring an end to Aku's reign. One day, one of the scientists implanted an experimental emotion chip into Model X-49. This model proved to be far superior to all others in the war against the Resistance. However, over time, he began to distinguish between good and evil and eventually retired, regretting his actions. One day, he came across a small dog, whom he named Lulu, and became deeply attached with her. By that time, scientists had invented new robot models, so they left the X-49 model untouched. Meanwhile, Aku continued his conquest of the world. No one could escape his reach. He could see everything through his enchanted mirror, and hundreds of spaceships patrolled the skies, ensuring his complete control over the planet. Despite having dominion over Earth, Aku craved more power. He began opening portals to other galaxies, exploiting their resources just as he had done to Earth. This reckless expansion created a great imbalance throughout the universe. Thousands of species were forced to migrate, some fleeing their destroyed home planets to Earth, while others left Earth in search of safer destinations. Among these new arrivals, some sought only to survive, while others brought chaos. Various alien species claimed fertile land on Earth, offering Aku their technology or unique abilities in exchange for a place to stay. As a result, a wide variety of new races emerged across the planet. The Harrys settled on Earth peacefully, but when the Chiselettes arrived, they enslaved them. Additionally, an underground base known as the Doom Dome was established, where aliens engaged in brutal street fights for entertainment and profit. All of these changes further destabilized the universe. Aku's narcissism reached such an extreme level that he not only controlled the planet, but also took over global commerce, the stock market, and all forms of trade. Society became unrecognizable. 1,000 1,000 years passed without Aku seeing any trace of the samurai, but then, suddenly, the samurai reappeared in the future, facing countless dangers along the way. When he reached the sewers of Area D, some aliens were impressed by his ability to evade the machines hunting him. They began calling him Jack, as Jack had become a common expression used by the youth of the future. Not wanting to reveal his real name, the samurai embraced the nickname and introduced himself as Jack. His main goal was to find a portal to return to the past. Within just an hour of arriving in this strange new world, he fought his first battles and quickly realized that most of its inhabitants were robots. It is said that Jack never killed a human being. This fact suited him well, as it allowed him to fight with all his strength without regret. Soon, he encountered talking dogs, creatures who had no memory of their origins. While aiding them in their excavation work, Jack learned that Aku's elite samurai had returned. Aku then sent hundreds of robotic insects to mercilessly attack. However, Jack emerged victorious, defeating the army and freeing the talking dogs. From that day on, Aku began recruiting an endless stream of assassins to hunt Jack, determined to eliminate him before he could find a way back to the past. But aside from the assassins pursuing him, the world itself was an incredibly dangerous place. After freeing the talking dogs, Jack also rescued the furries, a peaceful species that had been brutally enslaved by the Chislets. Later, he aided a group of human scientists who were tired of working for Aku and were forced to produce advanced alpha technology. During his journey, he met a mysterious woman named Ikra, and together, they set out in search of a powerful jewel. Upon finding it, Ikra destroyed the jewel, but Jack soon realized a shocking truth. Ikra had never existed. She was in fact Aku in disguise. At another time, Jack fought a dark version of Aku, a monstrous entity created by the psychological torment Aku constantly inflicted upon him. During his journey, Jack met a Scottish warrior who became one of his closest and most trusted friends. Later, Jack helped his friend rescue his giant wife, and in return, the Scotsman aided Jack in a perilous sea adventure that would bring back lost memories of his past. In that sacred place, beings resembling small sheep control the portal. As Jack finally steps inside, Aku appears, drags him out, and destroys the final portal. As if that weren't enough, Aku then transforms the sheep-like beings into massive monsters and sets them upon Jack. Overcome with rage, Jack fights without holding back. However, once he slays them, they revert to their original innocent forms. At that moment, Jack realizes that he's killed beings who had nothing to do with the war. This crushing realization causes Jack to lose all hope. His sword falls into the void, and instead of trying to retrieve it, he simply accepts defeat. Not only has he lost his sword, but he's abandoned his very purpose. The samurai spirit within him is shattered. His will is broken. He's tired of war and failure. This despair slowly consumes him. 50 years pass. Over time, Jack develops an alter ego, a voice in his head that mocks and questions his existence. Strangely, he's not aged at all in these 50 years. It appears that time travel has halted his aging process. On one hand, this is a blessing, but on the other, it becomes a never-ending torment, trapping him in a cycle of suffering. At this point, the story quickly shifts into the events of Samurai Jack's 5th season. Approximately 20 years before these events, a secret cult devoted to Aku emerges. This cult worships Aku, erecting statues in his honor and establishing their own temple. One day, sometime after the cult's formation, Aku himself appears before them and congratulates them on their devotion. To reward them, he leaves a piece of himself in a chalice at the center of the temple. A member of the cult drinks from the chalice and soon becomes pregnant. The child born from this ritual is Ashi, who is raised alongside 6 other daughters before Aku's statue. The cult declares them the 7 daughters of Aku, destined to carry out his will. Their sole purpose is to hunt down and eliminate Samurai Jack. Throughout their lives, they're taught to see Jack as an enemy of their god and to worship Aku without question. However, they never ask why. They know that Aku is a being of pure evil and that his power is limitless, but they do not fully comprehend the nature of their own existence. One day, the daughters come of age and set out in search of the samurai, eager to kill him with their own hands. Meanwhile, Jack, having lost his sword, adapts to a new way of fighting. He acquires other weapons, including a repurposed pistol, a motorcycle for quick travel, and eventually he encounters Scaramouche, one of Aku's most dangerous assassins. After a fierce battle, Jack defeats Scaramouche and leaves his severed head behind. Soon, Aku's daughters track him down. They launch a relentless attack, aiming to end Jack's life once and for all. Believing them to be just another group of robots, Jack fights back without hesitation. But then, something unexpected happens. He kills one of them. In that moment, he realizes the terrible truth. They're not machines. They're human. For the first time in his life, Jack has taken a human life. The weight of this realization hits him harder than any wound he's ever suffered. His heart aches more than his injuries. And from that moment on, the battle is no longer the same. He had never killed a person, but when Jack realized that decisions define who we are, and that it was ultimately their choice to fight him, he finally decided to fight seriously. None of them backed down, all willing to risk their lives against him, but they were easily defeated. Only one remained, and although Jack could have killed her too, he chose not to. The woman, Ashi, became extremely aggressive, her heart filled with Aku's hatred. Since birth, she had been raised to believe that Aku was good and that Samurai Jack was evil. Jack tried to tell her that what she'd been taught was false, but Ashi refused to believe him. Meanwhile, they were suddenly swallowed by a massive creature. At the last moment, they managed to escape from its stomach, and in the process, Jack saved Ashi's life 4 times. Yet, despite everything, Ashi still tried to kill Jack. At that moment, a ladybug landed on Ashi's head, triggering a memory from her past. She recalled a moment during her training when she had seen a ladybug and reached out to pet it. However, her mother had crushed the insect with her hand, telling her that such insignificant, distracting creatures had no place in Aku's world. Now, seeing a ladybug land on Jack's hand and watching him let it be, Ashi began to reconsider everything she had been taught. Meanwhile, the Scotsman launched an attack on Aku, leading hundreds of his daughters into battle. During the fight, he was struck down by Aku, but his spirit lived on. He later found Jack and devised a plan to launch a large-scale assault against Aku. Over time, Ashi grew accustomed to Jack's presence and asked him to tell her the truth. Jack explained that Aku had destroyed countless lives, oppressed all people, and ruled with cruelty. Horrified by what she saw, Ashi realized that something had to be done to stop Aku. However, Jack, broken by years of failure, believed there was no way to defeat him. At that moment, a blue-skinned man approached them, saying that his children had been kidnapped. Jack and Ashi set out to save them. Just as Jack attempted to rescue the children, they collapsed, motionless on the ground. Jack, believing he had failed once again, was overcome with despair and prepared to commit seppuku. However, Ashi realized that the children were still alive. By chance, she encountered the many species that Jack had saved throughout his journey. These people, grateful for Jack's heroism, had built monuments in his honor, though Jack himself was unaware of this. Determined, Ashi sought out Jack and told him that he had saved countless lives, proving to him that his existence had meaning. She also reassured him that the children were alive. Her words changed Jack's mind, and he decided to search for his sword once again. Jack embarked on a long spiritual journey, during which Ashi protected him and ultimately confronted and killed her own mother. During his journey, Jack overcame his ego and successfully passed the trials set by the gods. As a reward, they restored his sword to him. Now, fully determined, Jack resumed his search for Aku. Along the way, he and Ashi grew closer, eventually falling in love. Meanwhile, Scaramouche, whom Jack had previously defeated, managed to reach Aku and inform him that Jack had lost his sword. Aku, who had been unaware of this, was overjoyed. Hearing this, Aku restored Scaramouche's body and immediately set out to find Jack. However, upon encountering him, Aku realized that Jack had already regained his sword. In his frustration, he disintegrated Scaramouche. At that moment, Aku sensed something unusual about Ashi. From her scent, he realized that she was his daughter. Seizing control of her, Aku forced Ashi to attack Jack. Jack, unwilling to harm her, surrendered his sword to Aku. Aku captured Jack and took him to his castle, hanging him before the entire world. He broadcast Jack's capture to demonstrate his victory, hoping to crush the spirits of those who opposed him. Instead, this act ignited the fury of every being Jack had ever helped. A massive rebellion was set into motion as people from across the world united in a final stand against Aku. Meanwhile, Jack struggled to free Ashi from Aku's control. At the last moment, he succeeded by telling her that he loved her. As Aku prepared to strike Ashi down, she suddenly realized that she had inherited his powers. Using her newfound abilities, she freed Jack, returned his sword to him, and opened a portal to the past. Through this portal, they traveled back to the Edo period. The samurai who had once fallen into Aku's time portal 1,000 years into the future now returned to the past, standing alongside Ashi. And just like that, Aku was completely destroyed. At last, Jack had won. Peace was restored across the universe. With everything finally in order, Jack prepared to marry Ashi. However, just as everything seemed perfect, Ashi suddenly collapsed. She realized, to her horror, that because past Aku had been erased from existence, she had never been born. Ashi slowly faded away in Jack's arms, leaving him in sorrow. The samurai, victorious yet heartbroken, mourned her loss. But it was over. Aku was gone forever. This is how the legendary story of Samurai Jack ends. If you like the story or my narration, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next videos. Bye!